I paid for the venue, the flowers, the catering, the gowns, even the fireworks show she wanted at the end. $14,500. Not once did I hesitate. Because she's my daughter. The hall was glowing. Soft jazz played. She walked in, veil over her eyes. And I swear, I could still see the little girl underneath. The one who begged me to braid her doll's hair. The one who curled into my chest during every storm. The one who used to call me Superman. And yet, at the reception, she took the mic. The room fell silent. Glasses clinked. Everyone leaned in. I just want to say. Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with joy. I want to thank my real father for all the happiness in my life. The room smiled. I didn't. She turned, but not to me. Not to the man who saved every dollar for this night. Not to the man who sold his truck so she could have fireworks. Not to the man who raised her alone. When her mother walked away, she turned to her father-in-law. He blinked, paused, then stood, smiled, and bowed slightly, like some noble gentleman. Applause. Some glanced at me. Others didn't dare. I stood still. My hands had never felt so empty. My face had never carried so much silence. And yet I smiled, because a father knows how to bleed behind the eyes. My name is Walter Briggs. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because I ask myself every single day, have you ever built a life for someone, only to be erased from its final chapter? That night, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shame her. I didn't break anything. I simply walked to my car, sat quietly, and watched the sky explode with fireworks, the ones I paid for. And right then, a quiet idea crept into my mind. A gift. She'd remember far longer than her wedding. The next morning, I stood by the kitchen window, coffee in hand, watching the sprinklers stutter in the yard. The guest house was quiet again. No bridesmaids giggling. No florists running late. No music. Just me and the echo of what she said. My phone buzzed. Dad, just wanted to say thank you again for everything. Yesterday was magical. No mention of what she'd done. No apology. Just a casual text, like nothing had snapped. And that's when I knew. She didn't think she'd done anything wrong. That hurt worse than the mic. I walked into the garage, stood in front of the shelf where I kept every little thing she ever gave me. A macaroni card from second grade. A framed photo of her graduation, the one where I'm holding her in the rain. The locket she once gave me, for the world's best dad. I opened it. Inside was a faded photo of us, laughing. I stared at it and felt like I was looking at two strangers. That evening, I called the venue. Hi, this is Walter Briggs, father of the bride, Emma Briggs. I had a question about the photography package. I wasn't angry. I was deliberate. Yes, I just wanted to confirm something. The slideshow, was that from the files I submitted? A pause. No, sir. The bride's husband brought in separate files a few days before. Said they were more relevant. More relevant. They'd removed all the photos I sent in. No baby pictures. No moments of me teaching her to ride a bike. No father-daughter camping trips. Just her and them. I hung up. Then I opened my drawer, pulled out the black leather notebook I hadn't touched in years, and flipped to a blank page. At the top I wrote, things to remember, not to forget. Then, carefully I added, July 15th, she called someone else her father. July 16th, she erased our story. And then I circled the date of the wedding, with a note underneath. Start the gift. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't loud, it's patient. A week later, I visited the family plot. Not for any funeral, just to sit. There's something about grass growing over the names you loved that makes silence feel honest. My father's stone faced the sunrise, and I sat across from it, knees creaking, notebook in hand. I don't know what I did wrong. I whispered. She used to climb on my back to see fireworks. Now she thanks another man for putting them in the sky. The wind didn't answer. But grief has a way of listening. That night, I looked at the scrapbook again. But this time, not with sadness. With scissors. Page by page, I removed my memories. Carefully. Quietly. As if they'd never mattered. Not because I was bitter, but because I needed to feel what she had done. To understand how it felt. To erase someone. And once the pages were empty, I put it in a box, wrapped it gently, and wrote her name on top in gold ink. 2 days later, I attended their post-honeymoon brunch. They didn't expect me. "Oh, Dad, you made it," she smiled. A little tight around the eyes. Her husband gave me a nod, that kind you give to distant relatives. I placed the box on the table between us. "What's this?" she asked. "Just a collection of things I thought no longer belonged in your life," I said softly. She unwrapped it, opened the scrapbook, flipped through it. Blank. No baby steps. No birthdays. No braces or ballet recitals. Just white pages. What happened to the photos? I took a sip of my coffee. "I figured you already replaced them." Her smile faltered. The husband leaned forward, uncomfortable. "I thought it'd match your wedding slideshow," I added. "And your speech." She didn't respond. Not right away. But I saw her lips pressed together, the way she did when she realized something too late. I stood up, buttoned my coat. "One last thing," I said. "I canceled the anniversary gift I had planned for next year." "Wait, what gift?" she asked a little sharper. I turned back. "The house. It was going to be in your name." And with that, I walked away. Because not every legacy deserves to be inherited. I didn't expect her to call. And for 3 weeks, she didn't. No apology. No follow-up. Not even a thank you for the brunch gift. A scrapbook full of erased history. So I erased something else. The life insurance policy. Originally set to split evenly between Emma and my sister's kids. I rewrote it. Removed her name entirely. Left the rest to a scholarship fund. For young girls with no fathers in their lives. On the form, it asked, "Relationship to beneficiary?" I paused. And for the first time in my life, I wrote, "None." That night, I passed by the bookshelf in my study. Top shelf, middle row, the plaque she gave me for Father's Day 10 years ago. World's best ad. It used to make me proud. Now it just made noise. I took it down, turned it over, and quietly wrote on the back, with a black Sharpie, "Retired." Then came Sunday morning. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find her standing there. Hair pulled back, no makeup, no sparkle. Just my daughter. Or, at least, the version of her that hadn't appeared in years. She held the scrapbook box in her arms. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She sat at the kitchen table, the one I built myself after her mom left, and opened the book again, still blank. "I didn't know," she whispered, "that I was erasing you." I stayed quiet. Sometimes, silence is the loudest truth you can give someone. She flipped to the last page. "It felt like you were always there. So I thought you'd always be there. Like a roof or a floor." I nodded slowly. "Even roofs collapse if you stop looking up," I said. She looked at me then, not like a bride, not like a woman, but like a daughter, who'd just remembered what love costs. "Can I fix this?" I stood, walked to the fridge, pulled out 2 mugs, filled them with coffee, and placed one in front of her. Then I sat across from her and said, "I don't know, but we can sit in the damage a while and find out. Because sometimes, forgiveness isn't a door. It's a window you have to rebuild, pane by pane." The next few weeks were strange. She started coming by again. Not daily. Not always with a purpose. Sometimes just to sit. Sometimes just to breathe near what she'd left behind. And I let her. Because sometimes healing doesn't knock, it shows up quietly. And waits to be let in. One afternoon, she brought over an old VHS tape. "I found this in one of Mom's boxes," she said. "It's your voice, teaching me how to ride a bike." We played it. There I was, younger, stronger, yelling from the sidewalk, "Keep going, Em. I've got you if you fall." And there she was, wobbling, shrieking, laughing. In the background, my hand always hovering, never letting go. She didn't say much, just wiped her eyes, and whispered, "I forgot how loud your love used to be." But I remembered everything. I remembered the nights at the hospital, the lunches I skipped so she could go on field trips, the Christmas when I pawned my watch to buy her that keyboard she played once then left in a closet. I remembered all of it, but I also remembered the wedding. And sometimes, love doesn't overwrite that kind of pain. It just puts curtains over it, so the light doesn't burn your eyes. A few days later, I got a call from a realtor. "Hi, Mr. Briggs. I wanted to confirm, you're still pulling the transfer on the West Haven property, correct?" "Yes," I said, without hesitation. "Would you like to assign it to another relative or—" "No." Pause. "I'd like it donated," I said, "to the Veterans Housing Initiative." That house was going to be hers. But some roofs are better used to shelter those who still believe in home. She texted that night, "Just wondering about the house. Mom said you were giving it to me." I didn't reply. Some questions don't deserve answers. They deserve reflection. I opened my notebook, flipped to the same page, and beneath the old entry, I wrote, "August 3rd, I gave her silence finally." And somehow it said everything. Fall crept in. Leaves browned and let go. The way I had to. I didn't cut her off. I didn't exile her. But I also didn't remind her where she stood. I let her walk through the fog she'd created. And that fog had a way of showing her who'd vanished in it. She invited me to a dinner. Their 6-month marriage celebration, she called it. I said I'd think about it. But I already knew. I wouldn't go. Not out of revenge, but because I no longer had a seat at a table where I'd once been the carpenter. Instead, I spent the evening in my shed. Not sulking, just restoring. I pulled out the old rocking chair her mother left behind, sanded it, restained it. Every stroke felt like breathing again, like making something matter again, something with no expectation to clap back. At one point I paused and stared at the finished wood. I carved 3 words on the underside of the armrest. Once. Never. Again. The next morning, I found an envelope at my door. No postage. Just handwriting I recognized since she was 6. Inside, a printed photo. Me and her from the VHS tape. She writing. Me holding the bike from behind. On the back, she'd written, "I forgot, but I remember now." And a line below that, "Can we talk?" I didn't reply right away. Not because I was punishing her, but because I was learning something she hadn't yet. Some wounds aren't healed by answers. They're healed by absence. Instead of responding, I made a different call. "Hi, is this Mill Ridge Library?" "Yes, I'd like to reserve the hall on October 5th. "Yes." Just under the name Walter Briggs. "May I ask what kind of event it is, sir?" I smiled into the phone, slow and steady. Father-daughter night, but open to the public. For anyone whose father never made it to the mic. Because sometimes, the family you mourn was never yours to begin with. But the legacy you leave, that's still yours to write. October 5th arrived. The library hall was quiet at first. Just folding chairs, a cheap podium, and the smell of old paperbacks. But by 6:30, they started coming. A girl in scrubs who whispered, "I haven't spoken to my dad in 10 years." A boy with a limp and a taped-up guitar case. A woman holding her daughter's hand, saying, "He passed before he met her." They didn't know me, but they understood me. Because grief is multilingual. And fatherhood? It lingers, even when the room forgets you were ever there. I spoke for the first 10 minutes. Not a speech. A memory. I told them about the day she was born. How I held her like glass. How she wouldn't cry until I hummed Springsteen into her ear. I told them how I stayed when her mother didn't. How I packed lunches with sticky notes that said, "You've got this, Peanut." How I spent $14,500 on a wedding seat that came with no nameplate and no name. Then I stepped back and let them speak. One by one, they stood and shared what they'd never gotten to say. To the fathers who vanished. To the daughters who never came home. to the names that didn't make the slideshow. Somewhere around the seventh speaker, I felt something ease inside my chest. Not forgiveness, not pride, just space. A clearing where grief had been. Afterward, a teenage girl approached me. "Were you her dad?" she asked gently. I nodded. "Are you still?" I paused, then said something I hadn't rehearsed. I was the father. She was the daughter. Whether we still are depends on who remembers what that means. She nodded like she understood more than her age should allow, then hugged me, tight, like she meant it. And for the first time in months, I hugged back. That night, I walked home slowly. No tears, no bitterness. Just a note added to my black notebook. October 5th, I stopped being invisible. Not because she saw me again, but because I saw myself first. Weeks passed. No calls. No texts. But sometimes healing doesn't need noise. It needs distance. And discipline. I still kept the scrapbook. Still watched the VHS every now and then. But I didn't cling to what had been lost. I just let it sit beside me. Like a ghost I didn't mind keeping company with. Then, one afternoon, a package arrived. No return label. Just my name, handwritten in soft ink. Inside, the plaque. The old Father's Day one. But now the word "retired" was scratched out. And below it, in her handwriting, just one word. Still. Folded beneath it was a note. "I don't deserve another chance. But I wanted to tell you. I see you now. Not just as the man who paid or fixed or stood in the background, but as the father who never walked away. The kind of man I hope my children will someday know. Not by title, but by presence." There was a P.S. at the bottom. "The scholarship you started," I added to it, "for girls like me, who forgot too much for too long." I didn't reply. Not out of pride, but because some things are better left echoing. Instead, I walked out to the porch, sat in the rocking chair I had restored, and looked at the sunset alone. She had spoken. But more importantly, I had lived a story that no one could take from me. I opened my notebook one last time. The final line I ever wrote in it. Some names disappear from a slideshow, but they remain etched in the wood of everything we ever built. And as the light slipped behind the trees, I rocked gently in the chair, not waiting, not hoping, just still, because in the end, I didn't raise a perfect daughter, but I remained a present father.